During the last 2 weeks of May, I was out in the field helping a graduate student set up one of his experiments for the summer. These 2 weeks were focused on ponderosa pine trees, where we traversed rocky hillsides to measure trees, create plots, and enjoy the Colorado wilderness. Hello, welcome back to the Garden of Prometheus, where I believe human beings are creative problem solvers and are capable of positive change. This week, I'm talking about a project I helped out with, and I wanted to share that experience with all of you. To start, the main project is focused on the mountain pine beetle. If you haven't heard of them before, they are these tiny beetles that have big impacts on ponderosas. They are one of the main reasons why you see red pines while in a forest, as a tree has been affected by thousands of beetles. These beetles are native in Colorado, but a concern is that drier conditions can weaken trees and expose them to more pine beetle attacks. A tree is basically a giant straw and requires a lot of water. A defense that trees have when attacked by pine beetles is to flush them out with compounds that we see on the bark, and we often call these pitch tubes. They look like some form of throw up, and when it's fresh, it's squishy, as you can see here, but when it's a bit older, it has a bit more of a crumbly texture instead. This experiment uses SPLAT, a non-toxic chemical mixture that biodegrades to defend against beetles. The idea of SPLAT is to release a scent that signals to other beetles that the treated tree is already infected with enough beetles and that they need to move on to a different tree. We are testing the effectiveness of SPLAT by stapling an attractive scent bag to the trunk as well. This will allow us to see if SPLAT does act as a treatment for mountain pine beetles. Our goal was to tag and bait 150 trees, where each tree had a random treatment, and this was all done on private land. Each tree we measured had 3 things that always needed to be there. A tree needed a tag, a small circular tag that shows the number nailed on the north side of the tree, a bait to draw on the beetles, which is stapled above the tree tag, and pink flagging tape to indicate the tree is treated. What changed was SPLAT. There was a control, a 100%, and a 200% treatment. These blots were on each cardinal direction of the tree. We would identify our main trees by finding a green canopy with no pitch tubes, and if it was either codominant or intermediate. Codominant or intermediate is based off the height of the tree, where if it's smaller, it's intermediate, or if it's as tall as the others, it is codominant. From there, we would measure the DBH, or the diameter breast height, of that tree, and it had to be above 25 centimeters. If it had the right credentials, we would start measuring the trees in a 11.3 meter circle from our main tree. We would measure every tree within that plot that had a DBH of 15 centimeters or bigger. We would also measure the distance to the nearest fader tree, which is a tree that is yellow and not red yet, which means that it was recently attacked but not dead. The last thing we would do would add a GPS coordinate of our main tree into a Garmin. I know this sounds like a lot, and it was, but we got into a groove, and then we made sure we got everything done by doing a verbal check before moving on to the next tree. Our next tree had to be at least 98 feet away from all the other tagged trees, and we would begin the process again. Throughout the time, we would see some awesome views and got to enjoy being outside for most of the day. One morning, me and the other technician I was with, we went on a morning walk and we found a giant bone pile, and it was super crazy, and we talked to the landowners about it, and it turns out this is where a mountain lion layer was nearby. And it was super cool, and we got permission to go and take whatever the heck we wanted. So I brought home a cow skull for fun, and I'll be making a video about that in the future. These 2 weeks were a great time to just be around a lot of different animals, see different wildlife. See different plants. Bugs. And so much more. Most days were pretty steep, but a couple of days were very steep where we were on slopes all day and we had to just go up and down the slopes. And it was really fun, but it was definitely a leg workout. However, there is something that's really great about going high in elevation, as the views are always fantastic. Overall, this trip was very informative and such a blast. I now know a lot more about the ponderosa pine forests, and I look forward to going back out again with this new insight. My drawing is a dedication to this past adventure, and the main star is the ponderosa pine. As per usual, I start off with a base sketch, starting off with basic shapes and making sure that my reference makes sense before going into the colors. I start off with the background first and then go from dark to light, as you witness when you see the sky in real life. I am using gouache, but I'm still figuring it out, but this time I'm building more of the colors as each layer dries to really make the sky pop. I then start painting in the needles, going from light to dark, and I tried a different strategy than what I would have normally have done. I instead went with larger batches of needles and hint at those smaller bundles in the shadows rather than drawing every single needle individually. I do the same process with the trunks, going from light to dark, and I really went dark with the shadows to emphasize the lighting and the texture. I start off not with the darkest green yet, but then slowly build my darks. Here I add some texture to the ground, adding the shadows of the trees, as well as some more dimension to that grass. I then add some small minor details with colored pencil, just to add a little bit more texture in terms of the different greens and yellows throughout the piece. So this is the completed painting, and I'm really happy with how it came out. I don't normally draw trees very often, but I recognize it is definitely something that I want to continue drawing, as it is another piece in the puzzle of life, as well as something to improve upon in the future. Thank you all so much for watching the video. If you have any comments, please let me know down below, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!